Welcome to Next Gen Infomania, smart news for a smarter generation. Delivering truth with clarity, telling every story with integrity, and bringing the world to your screen. One headline, one voice, one unwavering commitment to journalism that informs, inspires, and empowers. I am Leo. All right, let's talk about something big. A massive shift is brewing, one that's set to completely redraw the economic map as we know it. Imagine two of the world's largest democracies joining forces, creating an economic alliance so huge, its effects will be felt everywhere. We're talking about the historic USA-India Trade Pact, a colossal $500 billion project called Mission 500. This is way more than just big numbers. It's about shaking up global power, a strategic move that's going to challenge the current giants and open up new paths for growth, jobs, and how countries deal with each other. So, what really happens when the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy decide to write a new economic story together? The ripple effects are going to be huge. To really get a grip on Mission 500 and why it's such a game changer, we need to see where this whole journey started. The United States and India have had a pretty significant, though sometimes complicated, economic relationship for a long time. In fact, for 4 years running, including 2024-25, the US has been India's biggest trading partner. In the 2024-25 fiscal year, trade in goods and services between them hit a cool $131.84 billion. The US market is a big deal for India, taking in about 18% of all its goods exports. And India? It's consistently sold more to the US than it has bought, with that trade surplus reaching $41.18 billion for goods in 2024-25, a number that's been climbing steadily. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. One of the main sticking points has been tariffs, basically taxes on imported goods. India's average applied tariff is around 17%, which is pretty high compared to other major economies. The US average, on the other hand, is much lower at 3.3%. And when you look at farm products, the difference is even starker. India's average tariff is 39%, while the US's is just 5%. These kinds of imbalances, plus other non-tariff hurdles like tricky technical and regulatory rules, have always been hot topics in their trade talks. The US also pointed out a goods trade deficit with India of $45.7 billion in 2024, which was up from the year before. Still, despite these bumps in the road, the overall trend has been more growth and countries relying on each other more, which really set the stage for something bigger. And that brings us to Mission 500. It's not just a flashy title, it's a very real ambition announced by Prime Minister Modi and President Trump when Modi visited the US on February 13, 2025. The big idea? To more than double the trade between the USA and India to an incredible $500 billion by 2030. This plan is a key part of a larger strategy called the US-India Compact for the 21st century. That's catalyzing opportunities for military partnership, accelerated commerce and technology, which is all about making transformative changes in key areas where they cooperate. What makes Mission 500 so clever is its all-around approach and its timing. In April 2025, they took a big step forward when Vice President Vance and Prime Minister Modi announced the basic outline for a bilateral trade agreement. This essentially laid out a plan for a deal that would benefit both sides across many sectors, aiming to open up markets, cut down those tariff and non-tariff barriers, and lock in long-term wins for both countries. They've been fast-tracking the negotiations, with officials from both sides in some pretty intense discussions. Word on the street in late May 2025 was that they might finalize a temporary trade pact as early as June 25, 2025, just before a July 9th deadline related to US reciprocal tariffs. The first phase of a bigger bilateral trade agreement, BTA, is hoped to be wrapped up by the fall of 2025. This quick timeline really shows how committed both governments are. They don't just want to nudge up trade a bit. They want to seriously boost their economic partnership to a whole new strategic level. The deal is expected to cover a whole range of sectors, pointing towards a future where their economies are deeply connected. Now, a $500 billion trade deal like this one between the USA and India? It doesn't just happen in an economic bubble. It sends powerful geopolitical shockwaves rippling across the globe. Many see this alliance as a strategic move to balance out China's growing economic and political muscle, especially in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Both India and the US are key players in the quadrilateral security dialogue, the Quad, along with Japan and Australia. That's an informal group focused on keeping the Indo-Pacific free and open. Stronger economic ties through Mission 500 naturally make this strategic partnership even tighter. The economic impact of Mission 500 is just huge, promising to really change things up for jobs, GDP growth, and how markets work in both India and the United States. And those effects will spread worldwide. For India, the potential is massive. Getting more access to the US market for its industries that employ a lot of people, think textiles, gems and jewelry, leather goods, clothing, and plastics, could create millions of jobs and seriously boost export income. The focus on tech and innovation, including India's booming digital economy and startup scene, fits perfectly with US strengths. This means we could see a big jump in collaboration, investment, and high-skilled jobs. Initiatives like Digital India and the Production-Linked Incentive (PLI) schemes are likely to get a major boost. And Indian pharmaceutical exports, which are already a big part of US healthcare, with 40% of generic medicines in the US coming from India, could grow even more. For the United States, the deal opens up India's rapidly growing market for American goods and services. US companies are really strong in areas like clean energy, solar, wind, hydrogen, advanced technology, defense and aerospace, and agricultural products. The US is looking for lower duties on industrial goods, cars, especially EVs, wines, petrochemicals, dairy, and farm items like apples and tree nuts. If they get that, it could boost American manufacturing, support farm exports, and create jobs back home. Plus, the whole idea of diversifying supply chains so businesses aren't relying on just one source also gives American companies more stability and security. Globally, this increased trade will reshape supply chains. As India positions itself as another option for manufacturing, businesses all over the world will have new choices for where they get their stuff. This could lead to better prices, more innovation, and maybe even more resilient global trade networks. India's finance ministry has said that a successful US-India trade agreement could turn current economic challenges into opportunities, energizing exports and opening up new markets. That $500 billion target by 2030 is definitely ambitious, but the groundwork being laid by Mission 500 could really spark this major economic shift. The success of Mission 500 really depends on strong growth and deep teamwork across several key areas. These are the engines that will drive this $500 billion dream: technology and innovation. This is a really big one. India's fast-growing digital economy, powered by government programs like Digital India and a lively startup scene, offers huge opportunities. The US, a world leader in innovation, is set for deeper teamwork in things like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, telecom, space, semiconductors, and biotech, all highlighted by the US-India Trust Initiative, transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. Data storage and e-commerce are also major topics of discussion. Clean energy and sustainability. Both countries are serious about clean energy. Expect a lot of US investment and technology sharing in India's solar, wind, and green hydrogen industries. Nuclear energy cooperation is also on the table. This fits right in with global climate goals and offers some pretty big business opportunities. Defense and aerospace. Strategic ties are turning into economic ones. India needs to modernize its defenses in a big way, and that lines up well with advanced U.S. capabilities. The U.S.-India Compact specifically talks about working together to produce and develop critical military gear. This includes things like Javelin missiles, Stryker combat vehicles, and P-8I surveillance aircraft, pharmaceuticals, and healthcare. India is already known as the pharmacy of the world, supplying a huge chunk of generic drugs to the U.S. The trade deal is expected to make this flow even smoother, though talks around intellectual property rights will be really important. Agriculture. This is a sensitive area, but a critical one. India wants lower duties on products like shrimp, oilseeds, grapes, and bananas. The U.S. wants more access for its apples, tree nuts, dairy products, and genetically modified crops. Finding a balance here will be key. Manufacturing and supply chain diversification. This is a core reason for the deal. India wants to become a major player in global value chains, especially as companies look for alternatives to China. This covers everything from electronics and auto parts to textiles and consumer goods. The U.S. is also interested in getting critical minerals from India. Services. It's not just about goods. Services trade, including IT, financial services, and maybe even education, will also be a big part of it. Although the first phase of the temporary deal might focus more on goods. Negotiations are actively tackling tariffs in these areas. India is looking for duty relief for its exports that create a lot of jobs, while the U.S. is pushing for cuts on its industrial and agricultural products. The goal is a wide-ranging, multi-sector agreement that truly opens up the potential in these fields. This whole story of the USA-India economic alliance is one of the biggest geopolitical dramas playing out right now. What do you think about Mission 500? Which sectors do you believe will see the most dramatic changes? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future explorations of major global shifts like this one. The USA-India $500 billion trade deal, Mission 500, isn't just another trade agreement. It's a pivotal moment in 21st century international relations. It marks a strategic meeting of minds between the world's oldest and largest democracies, a partnership that's ready to fundamentally change global economic power, shift strategic alliances, and set a new course for international cooperation. From the busy tech centers of Bangalore to the industrial heartlands of America, the impact will be real, creating jobs, sparking innovation, and fueling growth. But the effects go far beyond just what these two countries gain. This pact sends clear geopolitical tremors, challenging existing power structures, and offering an attractive alternative model for economic development based on democratic principles and shared prosperity. The journey to fully realize what Mission 500 can achieve will definitely mean working through complex negotiations, tariff tweaks, and domestic concerns. Still, the commitment from both Washington and New Delhi shows a powerful desire to build a future where their combined strength defines a new era of global influence. The world is definitely watching as this historic pact takes shape. It's not just heralding a change in trade numbers, but a profound shift in the global balance of power. The clever moves behind Mission 500 are laying the groundwork for a future where the US-India partnership is a key factor in global peace and prosperity. This is more than an economic story. It's the story of a new chapter in global power being written right before our eyes. Thanks for watching Next Gen Infomania. Subscribe for regular updates. See you soon.